These are the best websites and tools that you can use to make your league start experience as smooth as possible. Let's go. Up first, we have Path of Building. This allows you to have multiple trees so that you can level up, put all your skills in here, check your damage, configure your build with things like endurance, frenzy, power charges, etc., so that all of your numbers are accurate, as well as import your character so that you can copy and paste items from the game or trade to see how they're going to affect your build. This is also what content creators and build creators that make builds online will use to share their builds with you. So it's an extremely popular tool, and pretty much everybody that plays Path of Exile uses it. So make sure you grab this if you're new to the game, and if you're not new to the game, then the one thing that you might not have seen yet is this new loadouts feature. So to use the skill tree for an example, we have the level 12 skill tree right here, and we could create a new loadout and we could call this level 12, then those will be synced up. And that works for skills, items, and configuration as well. You just have to make sure that the text matches here and here. If POB is a little bit too complex for you, then I would recommend going to Maxroll and using one of their build guides. So we can go up here, make sure we're under League Starter, and say we want to look at the Bone Shatter League Starter. It has a great interface. Tripolar Bear makes great builds, shout out to him. But here you get a good overview. On the side, you have crafting guides, recommended Atlas passive strategies, a little description. The information tab will tell you a lot about how it scales and how it works, about the keystone passives that you'll be going for. Over here under the leveling tab, you get the skill tree, and as you use the slider here, it tells you where to go next, as well as what gems to equip in your gem slots so that you can stay optimal as you're leveling up. The tips and tricks also gives you a lot of information on running things smooth and quickly. I've done 4 or 5 of these builds before in previous leagues, and I've at least been able to do easy mapping with T16s, so it's never let me down. I can't recommend it enough, especially if you think the POB is a little bit too complicated and not as bite-sized as you'd like it to be. Up next, we have PoE Ninja, and this is the most popular website for seeing builds that are on live. If you're wondering, say, what is the most popular main skill that reached at least level 99, you could look over here at main skills after putting 99 there, and we can see that it was Lightning Arrow in the Necropolis League. Obviously, this isn't updated for Settlers of Kalgur because it's not out yet, but we can see Lightning Arrow, Splitting Steel, and if you wanted to click on Lightning Arrow, that would narrow it down to these builds, and 96% chose the Deadeye Ascendancy, used this item right here, Lethal Pride, Rare Gloves, and you can kind of start to narrow it down and maybe find one of these to follow, especially when you want to get more creative and you don't want to necessarily follow a meta. You can look up a specific skill and see how other people implemented that skill to reach level 100 and kind of combine multiple people's builds with that skill to try to figure out how you might want to play it yourself. Next up is Craft of Exile, and this is one of those that could get a whole video by itself, but just to show you really quick, we could click on Body Armor and Strength to look at all of the Strength body armors, and this will give us a list of all of the prefixes and suffixes that can be placed on that. What I will typically do in here is go to the emulator, and we could say create new item, and we'll do a two-handed axe just for an example, Despo, and you can just practice crafting in here without having to spend all of your in-game currency. That way you can figure out what's most optimal for what you're going for without wasting all your stuff. So there we go. I got, for example, this double fizz, and then I can say craft some fizz on it, and I can just mess around with this without blowing all of my currency and try to figure out a more optimal way to go about my crafting. Filter Blade is literally the GOAT. This is made by a creator called Neversink, who is a network architect. And if you want in-depth guides, I can't recommend enough just going to his YouTube. It's Neversink, like S-I-N-K. And he has a bunch of great guides that go really in depth on how to customize the perfect loot filter for your build. But for simplicity's sake, we can go to create new, and most people will start on semi-strict, and as they get farther and farther into the end game, you can move this up. But I always do semi-strict, then go to modules, add shaper sounds, hit apply, and just export that. And up here, you'll need to sync it with your official Path of Exile account. Then whatever you call it here will show up on your account, and that's how you'll have access to the filter in your game settings. You go to escape, game, and then your loot filter settings are right there at the top. So I would hit sync and download after I put in name and then save and sync, and then that would transfer over to my official account and I'd have access to it. The PoE Wiki is the be-all end-all place to find pretty much any piece of information that you need to know about the game. So say you were making a build that did chaos damage. You could type chaos damage in and it'll bring up the gems that use chaos damage, items and unique items. So you can kind of look through here, and if you're trying to piece together a build of your own, this is a fantastic resource for figuring out things that you could target farm to make the build as optimal as possible. So just to click on a random thing here, you can figure out how to get the item, what recipes can be used to create the item, previous variants, what it was like in the past, and version history. And version history is also super good if you want to look at skills. So for example, I could go to Volcanic Fisher 3.25 and I can see how that gem has been changed. So if this is maybe the second or third league that you've wanted to play a particular build, you can peek at the main skill gem here and see if it's still worth playing, or if maybe you should consider something else, or if it got a buff, then you can be happy or whatever. And it can really help you get an idea of where you want to go with the league. Similar to the wiki is the PoE DB. And what I find super helpful about this is when I forget things such as the vendor recipes, you can hit vendor recipe, and then scroll down to say equip recipe here. And say you're in Act 1 and you forget what to give the vendor for your sapphire ring. You can see here it's 1 iron ring, 1 blue skill gem. And you can go through this list here and say you need an onyx amulet for a crafting base. You can just see what the items that you need to give to the vendor are, and that kind of takes a little bit of bandwidth off of your brain so you don't have so much to remember. I also like to use this for the Pantheon because Lord knows every single league I forget where I need to go to acquire my Pantheons. So I use it for that. I kind of just keep this on my second monitor, and that way I have a quick website I can go to figure out information that I may have misremembered or don't remember at all. If you are new to the game, this PoE How to Start guide on the PoE Vault, which is by the Icy Veins creators, is the best, most all-encompassing new player guide I have ever seen. It covers everything from what to do at this screen and the philosophy behind the passive skill tree, how the passive skills work, what gems are, what the different modes are about, and just generally how to get your feet wet knowledge-wise in Path of Exile and have a better experience playing the game because you're able to start off with a good knowledge base. The last thing that I have here is the Path of Exile official site. Now, the first reason that I want to point at this is because it's where we get our Path of Exile news. And if you kind of look here at the amount of replies that everything has, you can see what's popular. So everybody's been looking at the new gems, and here the devs will kind of break down why they're doing everything. A lot of these posts also have links to YouTube videos for trailers or breakdowns of new system mechanics, new league mechanics, and new quality of life features that they're adding to the game. Some of them are blog posts that just kind of tell you the philosophy of why they're doing what they're doing, or maybe a post about the patch notes, things like that. And the second thing is the PoE trade site. This is the official Path of Exile trade site, and it's where I heavily recommend you go when you're looking to trade new items. You will probably be using this a lot, or have used this a lot in the past if you are currently a player. But the way that I like to use it is, say I need to make a Nightmare Bassinet. I'll go here and I'll go to count. And what count's gonna do is, if I put 10 statistics here, I can put min 3. And what that would mean is I want at least 3 of those 10. So say I want cold, fire, lightning, resist, and max life on a Nightmare Bassinet. And we choose rare for our rarity so we don't get any of the unique ones. We don't want it to be corrupted, and we want it to be a 4-link. Make sure that you have the league selected up here. It's not there right now because there's no league live at this time of recording, but hit search and it'll give you some results. And sometimes you'll have, 5,000 results or something ridiculous. What you can do is you can say, let's make my resistances a minimum of 25% with 50 life, and that narrowed us down to 17. So, you could keep making it stricter until you have a more feasible number of results to look through. So that's generally how I'll go about looking up items to buy from other players. I'll have my POB opened over here and trade opened over here, and I'll say, okay, if I unequip this item, that'll drop me down to this much cold resist and this much chaos resist. Then you can copy with this little button down here, paste it into your POB, see how it will affect all of your calculations, and then get a better understanding on whether it's worth it for your build or not. And that's another reason why POB, even though it is intimidating, if you're really enjoying the game as you start your league, it's something that you would definitely eventually want to get if you want to progress very far in the end game, because of how it allows you to do things like test out items that you don't have yet and see how they're going to affect the strength of your build. The very last one that I want to look at here is PoE-leveling.com, and this is my favorite speed leveling guide because as you check things, it crosses them off, so you don't have to do that whole thing where, you know, you look over at your second monitor where you have this up and you kind of get lost. You can't remember what number you're on. And, you know, if you're really down here on number 13, you're not going to remember that. So if we've been able to cross everything off down to 13, we can quickly say, okay, this is where I'm at, check it. What do I need to do next? And then it's nice and color coded, and it'll bring you through all of the acts. Nice little animation there when you check the very last thing. And this will help you speed run through the campaign as fast as possible. You can also click this pick gems down here at the bottom and pick what your beginning classes and start to go through and click all of the gems that you need for your build. So if you take a minute to set this up before you start playing, then it will actually implement those gems into the guide. So real quick, if I say want ground slam in Act 1, then it will add that here to make sure I don't forget to pick that up from the vendor. And you can make sure that you grab all of those as you're playing through. So super useful tool here, nice layout, throw it on your second monitor, and it'll give you a lot easier time. These tips are actually great at the beginning of each act as well, because they're filled with general reminders of things that oftentimes you'll forget if you just get to where you're trying to go fast. All right, and there you have it. Those are all the tools that I use to have a nice, smooth league start experience. Get out there, happy blasting. I hope everybody has fun. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.